Hello ladies and welcome back to my channel. I'm David, you're David, we're all David, and welcome to Dismantling Hate, the series where I, your host David, walks you through some hateful online rhetoric, transphobia, homophobia, xenophobia, racism, fatphobia, all of the ways in which people can be hateful online. And unfortunately, there's no shortage of those things to be found. So today we are going to be reacting to a video from the creator of Amala Ekpunobi? I've tried it so many times. I don't know how to say her last name. Ekpunobi? I'm not sure. Excuse me. And the video that we're going to be reacting to today is called Debunking Woke Trans Sports TikToks. So, yeah. So before we get started here, besties, please do not go to the profiles of any of the creators that I feature in my videos. We may not have Michelle Obama's arms, but we do have her attitude, and when they go low, we go high. So we are not here to participate in this culture of hate.
Well, that's very nice of you to say, David.
But we are here to call out these real harmful things that these people are spreading. It's shocking as I do more research into this trans debate, as if that's a thing, but it's 2024 and we're debating people's existence, which I find quite upsetting. If you love the sound of my voice, consider subscribing to the channel, like the video if you like the video, and let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think woke is a real thing, or is it just you're a good person? Because that's what I think. I think woke is a red herring. You're trying to distract people if you're like, oh, you're so woke. I'm like, oh, or you're aware of how your behavior affects other people. Anyway, that's just my opinion here. So yeah, so without further ado, let's get into it. Let's see if we can debunk the debunker. That sounds like a slur. Roll the homophobia, am I right? What is my life?
There is absolutely no evidence to support that trans women have dominated the women's category.
Transgender women are women and transgender men are men, and both should be permitted to compete as athletes against those of the same gender identity.
People say all sorts of things about testosterone and bone strength that are completely made up.
All right, guys, welcome in. Today we have a guest on the show, and it's a guest that's been, a long time coming, I feel like. We've covered her many times on this channel to talk about the good fight that she is fighting every single day now since she rose to prominence just a couple years ago in 2022.
It's so disheartening to see young people on the wrong side of this debate. I'm sorry, if you're here, I do think that the anti-trans argument is wrong and hateful and stupid and another adjective that I can't think of because I'm so friggin' tired. To see like a young, beautiful person like talking about this stuff and being hateful online just never fails to boggle my mind. So this is your reminder here too. It's not just don't support these anti-trans people, it's also support the pro-trans people. And that's not just me, like go out there in the world and find those creators that are fighting the good fight, except the not transphobic one, and support them. Like their posts, share their videos, comment on their things. Like we need to be boosting the woke algorithm here and not like, okay, you can't use the term woke in a derogatory way without simultaneously discriminating against somebody else. I hate this. But we're here to practice. We're here to practice combating this hateful rhetoric, maybe not even only online, but in real life. Because if you sit down with your best friend's sister's husband's daughter and it's this girl and she's hateful, maybe you'll have a little bit more language in order to debunk her debunking. I just like saying that. Say it with me. Debunk her debunking. Words have no meaning.
Riley Gaines, you know her as a former collegiate female swimmer. She's All-American, an Olympic hopeful, and as I said before, she rose to prominence in 2022 in fighting for women's spaces, women's privacy, security, and most importantly, their sports. If you've heard the name Leah Thomas, you've probably heard the name Riley Gaines, and now she has a new book coming out titled Swimming Against the Current, Fighting for Common Sense in a World That's Lost Its Mind. Riley, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. That was a very kind intro, and I could not be more excited to be on with you guys, so thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Of course, our audience is probably going to be going crazy because you're a badass, and they know your story, I feel like. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to have some fun. Oftentimes, the challengers to what you believe when it comes to fighting for single-sex spaces and women's sports, you don't get to really see eye to eye. And in the times that you've been to college campuses, of course, it's been a little bit of a problem. I feel like you've been accosted on many an occasion, correct?
And we're about to continue that accostation here on this channel. Again, like I don't want to keep harping on their physical appearances, but these women are so beautiful. And it just, I guess maybe because like Dismantling Hate, my series, this is what, episode 32. We've been looking at a bunch of like crusty old people who are like, yeah, trans is woke. And these are like young, seemingly educated, well-spoken. Like this one's an author. This one has like a lot. Anyway, it's just hate can come from all spaces and hate can be beautiful. No, that's not what I was gonna say. It's just okay. I've mentioned it twice. I'm not going to talk about how pretty I think they are again. Okay, shut up, David.
Correct. I have been spit on, I have had drinks poured on me, I have had bottles thrown at me, I have, of course, been labeled and called the most profane, heinous, obscene things you could possibly imagine. I've been physically assaulted. I've been punched in the face by these men who are wearing dresses, which fortunately for me, their punches really don't hurt that bad.
There's transphobic language just sprinkled into everything that she's saying here, right? Okay, so she's talking about men in dresses, who I would assume in this context she means trans women. If their punches don't hurt so bad, are you comparing that to a punch from a man that would hurt? And if that's the case, you're saying that a trans woman's punch would hurt less than a man's punch. So then why can't they participate in your sport if it is synonymous with the punch of another woman? I don't know. I might be reading into that a lot. Also, we're not advocating for the violence against anybody. I don't think it's right that she's been physically assaulted. I do think it's right that she's been called some heinous names. I think that's probably appropriate given the things that this woman gets on stage and says. And it's not always necessary. You don't always necessarily need to be focused on the audience reaction, but if you are consistently getting this reaction from people out in the world, you kind of have two options, right? You can put your head down and dig through the transphobic mud even farther and like keep your blinders on and just keep being hateful no matter what anybody says, because obviously if people are getting upset, it's a sign I'm doing something good. Or you can be critical about your own behavior and really look at what you're doing and go, I wonder why people are this upset. I obviously don't have the same size of platform as these women yet, but I've never had those kinds of interactions with people. The only interactions that I've had with people in real life are lovely. The people that recognize me out in the world, and it hasn't been that many, but it has happened. People are kind. People are nice. Nobody comes up to me and is rude and awful. And I think that's because I'm not hateful.
I mean, you name it, it's happened. I think even just this past semester, there was probably 10 or 12 people who got arrested for trying to crucify me. So
goodness, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, I wonder, and one thing I'll ask before we get into our TikToks today is, I feel like there's no way you could have ever imagined this was going to be the life that you were going to lead, and you were going to go through these things for something as basic as fighting for a woman's ability to compete in a sport and to have her own space. Is that correct?
Oh my gosh, it really does blow my mind. And I have to think about it sometimes. You know, the notoriety, the platform that I've developed, the impact that it has been able to be had, it blows my mind. I mean, even on X alone, over 1 million followers, and for literally saying men and women are different. There are two sexes, and you can't change your sex. And each sex is deserving of equal opportunity, privacy, and safety. And for saying that, it blows my mind.
That's not just what you're saying. And like, that's embarrassing. Somebody doesn't know the difference between sex and gender. Like, can you change your biological sex? Like, I don't think anybody's really arguing that. But the chromosomal profile of a man and a woman is not necessarily static either, if we look at the biology of it all. But I have a feeling we're going to get into that.
I was in dental school after college to be a dentist. So it would be an understatement to say this is a total 180 from what I thought I was going to be doing.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel like the same thing happened to me. I was going to nursing school with the intention of becoming a midwife, and then all of a sudden you make a video and you speak out against something, and then your life goes in a whole different trajectory, all because you just told the truth, which is, it's a very powerful thing.
All because you're just transphobic, and then all the transphobes out in the world, because they probably don't have enough representation, which is such a weird thing to say, but I think there are a lot of transphobic people out in the world, and if you're contributing to this culture of hate, like trying to crucify her, whatever that means, but if you're like a lefty who's losing it and flying off the handle, you give people like this reason to say like yeah, they're all angry leftists who are like just mad because we're telling the truth, and like, no, that's not, honey baby sweetie, that's not it.
On today's show, we're in the comfort of our own homes, so we're not going to get accosted for saying the things that we say to these TikTok.
Hi, it's me. Yeah, you start putting out nonsense like this on the internet, I'm the consequence of that. Hi.
You can respond to people who maybe have some criticism for the things that you believe right there at home with the puppies and the dogs and all that fun stuff.
I know it. I wish you could see my dog just looking at me right now.
I bet he's proud. We're going to get into TikTok number 1, and these are all going to be focused around the sports argument, because there are, of course, a lot of leftists on TikTok that want to defend the right for transgender individuals to compete in the team of their gender identification. So we'll go into some of the most common arguments, and we'll start off with video number 1.
But transgender women are going to dominate the women's category if we let them play. Since so many people are sharing their uninformed opinions about trans athletes, let's examine a few numbers that are relevant. Transgender athletes have been permitted permitted to play in the Olympics for 20 years since 2003. Trans athletes are not new. If trans women did have some sort of massive advantage, don't you think we would have seen trans woman domination occur? Of course we would have. But the reality is that in the past 20 years, we have seen one trans woman compete in the Olympics in the women's category. And in the NCAA, trans women have been included for over a decade. And we have only seen 2 trans women champions in the women's category. Some 480,000, so about 500,000 athletes compete in the NCAA every single year. Everybody is talking about trans women winning all these scholarships and taking them from cis women. I do not know a single trans woman who has ever been awarded an athletic scholarship in the NCAA. There is absolutely no evidence to support that trans women have dominated the women's category. No, cis people dominate sports everywhere. If anything, trans women and trans people are massively underrepresented. 5,000 women compete in the Olympics every time. About 1% of the population is trans. If trans women were accurately represented, we would have 50 trans women Olympians every single Olympics. But most of the time we have 0. In 2021, we had 1. So as always, I remind you, trans people do not threaten sports. Transphobia does.
The book is called He, She, They. That's so funny. He, She, They, Them, Vegan, Vegetarian, Non-Binary Realness. I'm scared, so I'm gonna give it 2 stars. Mistress Isabel Brooks. Anyone? No? Okay, whatever. Before they even get their responses out here, I have 2 things to say. Number 1, I live in Canada, and more specifically in the province of Alberta, and our current premier, called Danielle Smith, is attempting to or has successfully passed laws that is keeping trans women out of competitive sports. What's so interesting to me about this conversation is that we're only focused on trans women. It's like these people are like, no, trans women can't be in sports because they'll be stronger. That's problematic in itself, but we'll get to that. Why aren't we then focused on the trans men? If the whole argument here is fairness, which is a lot of the basis of where these people stand on their rickety arguments, because from the same perspective of this argument, cis men would have an advantage over trans men in these competitive sports. So why are we only focusing on tearing one group down? Because by definition of this argument, trans men then would have a disadvantage in sports with cis men. And also the second thing is like sports, it's a game. It's a game. You're throwing a ball around. You're swimming through a pool. Is it that serious? Is it that serious? It's giving middle school bullying. Like, no, you can't play with us because your Tamagotchi's not pink. Like, who cares? And I understand, I'm not a sports person. I don't care about sports. I don't watch sports. I don't play sports. I go and lift weights in the air conditioning and then come back to my apartment. Like, I don't participate in sports in the same way that these people maybe do. I don't know. There's no logic to this argument other than the fact that they just want to exclude a group of people or they're very misinformed. Let's see which one it is. It's probably both.
Ooh, interesting. And he, she, they is the name of the book that they're putting out. So I'm imagining that's going to contend with yours a little bit. What is your uneducated and uninformed opinion on that, Riley?
Well, first of all, I mean, half of the things she said, that's actually a woman. Her name is Skylar Baylor.
Okay, already? You're disgusting. You're a disgusting, pathetic individual when you can, this person, oh God, no. That would be the same thing as me looking at this woman and being like, well, she's a brunette. She's not a blonde. Her skin tone is not that smooth. You see how much makeup she's wearing? Like, people in the world do things to their bodies to make them feel more comfortable, like dyeing your hair, like wearing a bunch of makeup. Like, that's not how this person was naturally born into the world. And like, okay, neither was the way that man was in that video. Who cares? People who want to be discriminatory care. So that's disgusting. She's no longer pretty. She's gross.
So I'm at Harvard, actually, before deciding to transition into a man. But look, to say that the NCAA hasn't awarded any males a female scholarship, that's entirely false. There's a website called shewon.org, and it says over 981 medals have been taken from women, deserving women, by cheating men, affecting over 687 different female athletes and over 483 different competitions, over 35 different sports. Wow. Also, one other thing I want to point out, notice in that video, she's basically saying that there are women, it's so confusing for me, my brain gets so frazzled on all the different things.
Mine too.
She's saying the whole video only talking about men identifying as women, basically not only saying that it's not happening, but actually saying that these men are at a disadvantage. If that's the case, then why didn't she spend any amount of that video speaking to women identifying as men and going into men's sports? And that's because that's not happening. And let's ask ourselves why that's not happening. And of course, that's a rhetorical question. We know why that's not happening. It's because women would never and will never be able to transition into a man, even taking testosterone, and compete at the same level as they did competing against the women.
Incorrect. Incorrect. Hard stop. Hard line in the sand right there. Incorrect. So like, okay, hi, my name's David. I was assigned male at birth. I have many trans men in my life. Half of them are stronger than me. Half of them are weaker than me. And you know what? You know what the differentiator is of whether someone's going to be stronger or weaker than a cis man? Ugh, God, I hate that. Is who's practicing. It's the ones that are stronger than me are up in the gym how many days a week, practicing, lifting weights, like doing all those things. Also, I can speak specifically to the neuroscience side of things, not necessarily to like the physiological, like muscular side and all of that. But when we're looking at the differences between male and female brains, there's actually not a huge difference between the structure of a male and a female brain, if we're going to use the binary like that, but rather it's a brain that is influenced by hormones that influences the function. So the structure of your brain is not that different. The function of your brain, so the way that your brain works, is different. And that's not influenced on whether you were assigned male at birth or assigned female at birth. The biggest differentiator on how a brain functions is the presence of a hormone, specifically testosterone or estrogen. So you have a masculinized brain if your body has those higher levels of testosterone, and you have a feminized brain if your body has higher levels of estrogen. So it's not what you're born as, it's what hormones are in your body. So if you are a trans person who is taking hormones, you are effectively feminizing your brain and body or masculinizing your brain and body, depending on what hormones you are taking. So it's not, yeah, there are trans men in sports. There just are. Yeah, honestly, at the end of the day, I really believe it's who practices more. The way that these people are framing this conversation is that it's like this big cisgender man bodybuilder who's just throwing on a dress and a heel and is like body checking people and is just body checking these cis women off of the soccer field in sports and like just hurting them and taking their money and taking their awards and that, when it's just legitimately not happening. If somebody is legitimately trans, if somebody is legitimately a trans woman, they are not doing it to have an advantage over you in sport. Sure, there may be people in this world who have taken advantage of some of those policies of like, so, okay, is there a potential that there's somebody like me who was born a male to like transition to like seemingly transition to female just to get into sports, just to have that advantage over people? Sure, that's a possibility, and I'm sure that's even happened. That's wrong. If you're not legitimately a trans person and you're doing it in order to have an advantage over cis women in sports, I think that's wrong, and I think that's gross. But I don't think that's happening. If people are legitimately trans and they are trans all the time, not just when they're on the soccer field, they deserve to be in sports. And they deserve to play with their respective gender in sports. I really hate how she just keeps misgendering that man. It's really disgusting. She is going to die old and alone. I hate her. Yeah.
To say that there was only one trans-identified person competing in the Olympics is false. I would imagine who she's referring to is Laurel Hubbard, who is the weightlifter from New Zealand who competed against the women as a man. But what about the soccer player by the name of Quinn playing in Canada, who identifies as non-binary and trans, whatever that means? But
Hi, it's me. I'm non-binary and trans. It means that you're giving the royal middle finger to this idea of gender, and you're saying, hey, I'm not participating in that. And that's what these people just, why is every freeze frame just horrific for these two women? It's probably the same for me, so don't click pause. Keep watching. Do we not have hobbies? But if you're not, God, okay, I can't. This is going to take years.
Female, identifying as a male, but of course competed with the females. Nonetheless, still trans. What about the BMX biker who, again, was competing in the category that did not align with their sex? So I know of 3 trans athletes who competed in the last Olympics in their, I guess, not in their rightful category. So, again, a lot of misinformation. She posts a whole lot of things.
He.
That are just entirely false.
It's amazing to me the amount of misinformation I came across on TikTok just scrolling through hashtags on this. And it's interesting that the general view is that in order for women to be threatened in their sports spaces, the men have to be dominating every single category. It's just ridiculous. I mean, how many women have to lose to a biological man for it to matter? In my opinion, it's 1. But they need Olympics and NCAA scholarships, which apparently we still have anyways, according to your information.
It's so true. And how deeply misogynistic to say women are only deserving of equal opportunities if they're competing at the highest level.
I mean, if we're talking about misogyny here, it's really these two women are TERFs, which is trans exclusionary radical feminists, is that you cannot fight for the rights and equality of one woman while slapping the rest of the women in the world. And yeah, spoiler alert, trans women are women, trans men are men, and you can refer to them as such. It's so hateful. And yeah, the body language of these two as well. I've studied body language a bit, facial expressions, micro expressions. It's not really anything I can back up effectively here without going through a lot of science, and that's not what we're here to do. But it's giving insecurity. It's the insecurity is jumping off the screen at me personally. But that's just a little personal anecdote.
How regressive is that? I mean, Title IX enacted 52 years ago in 1972. This was a huge step forward, not just for women in sports, but women as a sex, as a whole. But by saying that we only deserve to call ourselves champions if we're competing at the highest level is deeply regressive, taking us back in time at least half a century.
That's regressive. That's taking you back in time. Get a grip, girl.
It's funny because they do this under the guise of progress, as if we're moving in the positive forward direction. But let's be very clear, this is deeply regressive.
Yeah, and we've seen it on so many levels. You know, he references
Like, regressive implies that you're going back in time. I don't think there was ever a time where trans people were more accepted than they are today. That's just not... Transphobia on the whole, I believe, is going down. Hopefully. Oh my God. Hopefully we're a part of that right now. See? Me making this content, you interacting with this content. We're gonna get them. We're gonna get the TERFs. And not in like, we're gonna get them, and I'm like, we're gonna run them down with my car. We're gonna get them is that we're gonna educate them out of their idiocracy. Idiocracy? That's not a word. Doesn't matter.
NCAA, you shared a story recently of, I believe, 13-year-old girls who were protesting a biological boy wanting to throw shot put in their competition. And these are smaller stories that I guess...
How stupid is that? You want to throw a little... to be honest, is shot put a ball, or is that the discus? Am I thinking about the discus? I'm always thinking about a discus. So stupid. Like, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? They care. That's weird.
Rise to prominence or have significance for these people, but these are women's lives that are being affected, and young women in particular, and that just continues and continues until we get to spaces like the Olympics, which we've already gotten to, and we will continue to. I think this only expands if we don't further debunk some of the messaging here.
No doubt. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah, we got another one, and this is also another prominent figure on TikTok. This is Griffin Maxwell Brooks.
I love this person. I love this person. This is one of the first people that I found online that was rocking that non-binary chic so fearlessly and so flawlessly, in my opinion. And I love this individual. I love this individual so much from the bottom of my heart. So I'm going to be very biased about what they say about them. I just love Griffin. I love Griffin. Go follow Griffin right now. Everywhere. Love Griffin.
Videos a lot. Let's hear from him on this issue.
My name is Griffin Maxwell Brooks. I go by they, them pronouns, and I am a trans, non-binary person on the Princeton University swimming and diving team. I'll start by saying this. Transgender women are women and transgender men are men, and both should be permitted to compete as athletes against those of the same gender identity. Recently, some controversy has risen in the Ivy League over whether or not Leah Thomas, a transgender woman on the UPenn swim team, should be allowed to compete. She has abided by the NCAA and Olympic protocol, which require that she be on hormone replacement therapy for at least a year. She's done 2 years. And
they require hormone replacement therapy. So that even takes out, you're feminizing your brain and body. You're masculinizing your brain and body effectively if you are on hormones and then participating in sports at the Olympic level by the NCAA. Wow, look at me. Sports words. Come on, Butch. Is that, I love Griffin so much. Have I said I love Griffin? We're going to get married. I don't know. I love them. They're going to keep saying he, and I hate that. I hate that.
Testosterone be beneath a certain level. The reality is that her genetic advantage is no more a source of unfairness than the genetic advantage that we see from person to person within the same gender.
Okay, that's really interesting as well. Yeah, you line me up with another person who was assigned male at birth. Like, our testosterone levels are going to have a difference. Our levels of who's it's and what's it's and all of the things are going to be different. So there's going to be a genetic advantage across the same gender as well. I never thought of that. Thanks, Griffin. That's good. They're debunking their own debunking here.
Probably know that Michael Phelps has an abnormally large wingspan and produces lactic acid, the chemical that makes your muscles sore, at half the rate of his competitors. Genetic advantages, which he has over others. The reality is that the opposition to transgender women competing in sports only exists because they are winning, not because people are pushing for equity. Nobody has made any similar statements on how we can accommodate for the genetic advantage when it comes to transgender men in athletics, because transphobic people do not care about equity. They only care about preventing transgender people, women in this case, from winning over cisgender people.
Let's just hold a moment for that. Tea, honey.
Tactic among cisgender women to leverage misogyny as an avenue to perpetrate transphobia. By setting themselves apart from transgender women via the same argument of genetic advantage, they justify transphobia by insinuating that trans women are invading their spaces, their bathrooms, and now their sports. We call these women TERFs. Leah Thomas should be allowed to swim as a woman against women because she is a woman. I implore you to do your own research on the science and biology involved in this situation, which back up my points, rather than listening to uneducated figureheads like Caitlyn Jenner who act only in their own political self-interest. And if your argument is that I, Griffin, am not a woman and therefore cannot speak on this issue, I'll leave you with this. Leah Thomas is a woman, and she's telling you how she feels, and you're fighting against her. Have a great night.
There's a creator that I follow on YouTube, Mickey Atkins. I love Mickey Atkins. If you like me, you're going to love Mickey. Go to their channel and subscribe to them. They're a therapist and talk about therapist-y things on their channel. Some of the inclusive language that they use is that they say people who fall victim to misogyny. So it's not saying women, because I would be a part of that category. I fall victim to misogyny in the way that people sometimes are not nice, are not kind to me, are discriminatory to me because I show up in the world in a feminine way. So somebody who is victim to misogyny means that they are being discriminated against because of their femininity, and I definitely fit into that category. So yeah, it's really interesting. I love it. I love Griffin. Okay, bye Griffin. Love you, babe.
So much to say. I think it's hilarious when we're speaking about sports, which inherently do not care about your feelings. Do you think
sports don't care about your feelings? This reminds me of the last episode where dogs don't care about your gender. Yeah, what? Are you okay, ma'am?
the pool ever looked at me, my coaches ever looked at me when I showed up at 4:30 in the morning to jump into a cold pool? I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I don't want to do it.
We don't care. We don't care.
They looked at me and said, Riley, we understand how you feel today. You don't have to swim. No, not one time ever.
Well, that kind of sucks, though. Why aren't your coaches being kind to you? That's kind of sad. That's kind of alluding to a different problem. Coaches should be plugged in. They should know and be aware of the emotional and physical needs of their people, their sportists. I don't know. My coffee's slowly kicking in. Okay.
Do not care about your feelings. Neither does winning. So to sit there and say, look, Leah Thomas, she's telling you how she feels. Well, let me tell you how I feel, Griffin. I feel as if I do agree with him on the part where he said, look, Leah Thomas is following the rules. I have no personal animosity towards Thomas because he was following the rules. It's the rules.
Yeah, I have no personal animosity. Proceeds to misgender her. Like, you're just being rude. I'm trying not to swear. I'm trying not to swear. This person is so hateful. It's so gross.
That I've certainly been challenging here. That's not to say I don't think he's entirely a narcissist and displayed an utter disregard towards our feelings and privacy in the locker room, but he wasn't abiding by the rules. But Griffin, here's how I'll tell you I feel. And the majority,
Okay, but your feelings cannot discredit somebody else's existence. That's not a hot take. That's not an opinion. That's discrimination. Hard stop.
Overwhelming majority of the rest of us. And I know this because I can attest to the tears that I saw. I can attest to the extreme discomfort in the locker room when you turn around, there's a 6'4", 22-year-old man, fully intact, fully exposing himself. I can attest to the whispers, because that's what they were. They were whispers of anger and frustration from those girls who, just like myself, had worked our entire lives to get to this meet. Here's how we felt. We felt betrayed. We felt utterly violated.
Honestly, why are you the one looking at this person's genitals and then being uncomfortable with that? How about you just don't look? Like, are you in the locker room, like, eyeing up everybody's crotch to make sure that they're a cisgender woman? Like, that's weird. That's weird. And this is kind of the stereotype that I talked about before, of like a big buff, like cis man who threw on a dress and is doing this to take advantage of women in sports. And that's just not the reality. It doesn't matter if that person has a penis or not. You've got to be kidding me. Are we that dumb to think that that's the only thing that's a part of this conversation?
We felt traumatized.
That's your own. If you're traumatized by a penis, that's alluding to a bigger problem in our society than trans women competing in sports.
of what we were forced to see, specifically speaking in the locker room, or how we were forcibly and non-consensually exploited. We felt traumatized because of just how easy it was for those people who created and enforced these policies to totally dismiss our rights to privacy without even a second thought, without even bare minimum forewarning us that that would be the arrangement. We felt belittled, we felt mocked, we felt pushed aside. But
like, all of those feelings are valid, but I think those feelings need to be worked on in therapy and not pushed upon all of the trans people who exist in the world. Like, that, honestly, that's not the trans people's problem. That's yours. That's your internalized misogyny and transphobia that needs to be worked on in therapy. And maybe if your coach cared about your feelings a little bit more and it wasn't just something where you were always pushed aside when you're in sports, like, a big part of why I never got into sports is not only because, but because I just didn't feel cared about there. I didn't feel that empathy. I am a very empathy-driven person, and I like feelings. I like connecting with people. I like meaningful connections with other human beings, and I didn't necessarily garner that from my few formative years that I spent in the sports community. I found that in the queer community, in the theater community, in the music, in all that gay stuff, you know? And like, it's not like your right to privacy. It's just another human being in the locker room. Are you really going to separate somebody just because of their genitals, just because of their perceived gender? Like, if there was a trans woman who they didn't know was a trans woman, would they have the same problem? I don't think they would have the same problem, because this whole conversation is predicated upon the fact that you know that that person is trans. And whether you know that person is trans either comes down to them telling you or to you being able to visually identify whether that person is trans. But if there's a passing trans woman, which means that you're not able to tell that she's trans, which is a whole problem in itself, because why are we looking at people to discern their gender that they were assigned at birth? It's weird. It's giving obsessed. The last thing on my mind when I meet a new person is, I wonder what gender they were born as. I wonder what kind of genitals they have. And this is like the first thing that these people seemingly think. Apparently, I don't know. Yikes.
Imagining to Griffin that our feelings don't matter. It is so frustrating.
Your feelings do matter, but your feelings are based and rooted in discrimination. Like, can't you see the parallels here of like racism? Do these people not see that? Of like, my feelings are that all white people are awful. Okay, like, that's not, sorry, but that feeling it's not that it's invalid, it would be racist. It's not appropriate. It's something that you need to work on, not something that the rest of the world needs to work on in order to please you. You know, it would be like me walking around, and I hate yellow cars, and every time I see a yellow car, I'm like, God, I'm so friggin' pissed that there's another yellow car here. The government needs to do something about yellow cars. Is it the world's responsibility to like either paint over or destroy all of the yellow cars in existence? Or do I need to go to therapy to figure out why and what has happened in my past that makes me so upset when I see yellow cars? You know, it's giving immature. That's what it is. It's not the world's responsibility to tailor everybody's experience to fit your specific mindset. And I see how that could be flipped around to the other side, but it's not that complicated. It's just people existing in the world and the gender that makes them feel most comfortable and confident and happy. And why are you arguing against the authentic expression of other people? Is because maybe you're not authentically expressing yourself? Maybe you're not happy with yourself? I don't know. I don't think these women are particularly happy with themselves. I thought about misgendering them on purpose because they keep doing that, but I'm not going to participate in that same culture of hate, just like I've asked you not to. So these are people who identify as women, and I'm going to... Can you imagine one of them at the end is like, yeah, I'm trans. Anyway, okay. This has been a long time. It's been 46 minutes and 14 minutes. Okay.
To hear this, to see this, it's just angering is what it is. It's disheartening, actually, demoralizing, more so than frustrating. It's disheartening. It makes me feel heartbroken. That again, you have a man, because that's what Griffin is, mansplaining, saying that, insinuating that people like me and you and Caitlyn Jenner are misogynist, yet here we are fighting for the sex-based protections and rights of women. That's the stand that I've taken. It's not anti-anything. It's anti-trans. It's very quickly labeled as transphobic, but no, I'm not standing against anything. What I'm standing for is women.
Come on, distinction without a difference. Someone get me Dr. Phil. Open the door.
Very much pro-woman, but they'll throw the labels out. They'll call you every name under the sun to try and...
You're pro-woman, but you're selecting the women that you're supporting, and that is not... That's not feminism. That's trans-exclusionary radical feminism, and that's gross.
Deter you, to scare you, which shows you, one, how our language has become entirely corrupt. They use words like compassion and inclusion, But again, it's not compassionate to ask a young girl to undress in front of a man. That's not what compassion is. And it's not inclusive to ask us to smile and step aside and allow these men onto our podiums. That's not what inclusion is. No, that's exclusion.
Girl, do you know? I don't even think I need to say it. We're on the same page. Yeah.
Exclusive to the very female athletes who the women's sporting category, or specifically Title IX, was created to uphold and honor and celebrate.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because so often they invoke feelings when they're talking about these arguments, and they really don't matter. I hate to, say the facts don't care about your feelings, but it's very much true. And he's tried to interweave in this argument his own facts about the male advantage and saying, some women have a significant advantage over other women when they're in their sports. Let's talk about a post-puberty transitioned man who's decided that they are a woman. We're talking about larger hands, larger feet, bone density, lung capacity, wingspan, as he invokes, Michael Phelps in his video himself. All of these things exist in a post-puberty transitioned body where you might have a little bit of fluctuation in these things amongst women, but we're still all women. I don't know how that doesn't land.
Oh, it's such a good point, and something that is unanimous across the board. If you're looking at sports like swimming or track and field, right, you're going, it's measurable, you're going a specific time, a specific distance, unanimously, regardless of what distance it is, whether it's a 200 or a mile, on average, men are 10 to 12%. That's what the performance gap is. If you take the world record holder, let's say in the women's 200 backstroke, versus the world record holder in the men's 200 backstroke, it's a 10 to 12% performance gap, which is a huge percentage.
But that's between men and women, not trans women and cis women. There's a difference there. Because all of those factors that would contribute to your time and all of that would be different if you were feminizing your body with estrogen. If you were, as the NCAA, I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to say it, as the NCAA says, you have to be on hormones for at least 1 year. So it's not, you can't take the data between men and women and say that's the same thing as trans women and cis women, because that's just not the same thing.
Your entire life to shave merely 1/100ths of a second off. So, for example, if you're racing for 100 seconds, a minute and 40 seconds, just for easy numbers, a minute and 40 seconds, that's what the woman goes in the world record. The man would be 128 seconds. 88 seconds, which is a minute and 28 seconds. That's a huge, huge difference. So yes, Michael Phelps, he has Marfan syndrome, meaning he has more elasticity in his joints, longer, lankier limbs. That equates to a decimal of a performance gap. And yeah, his competitors, they're all still men.
So thank you for that argument, Grax, but it doesn't stand.
I had to look up that guy. I haven't seen him on my TikTok before.
Yeah, he's all over, and I think he's did like a
They.
a Vice video about being trans, or like being about masculinity or something like that. He's all over the place. Also another trans non-binary, whatever that means. Oh my goodness.
Trans non-binary. Woo! Drink to that. Oh, God. I'm so glad that you were here, Griffin. I love you. Not that you're watching this, but Griffin, I love you.
What that means. Oh my gosh.
Me.
And you don't understand what it means. It's stupid. It's giving grade 4 playground. And I know that because I've been a grade 4 teacher.
Me neither. So we have yet another trans woman who is defending the position of trans women and I guess trans men being able to compete in their sexual or gender identity category.
I love that outfit. The hair with the feathers and the gold. Slay.
Watch.
Some people say that allowing trans athletes to compete
Oh, and the accent. You better get out of here, girl. Yes.
in women's sports would result in more injuries to cis athletes or give trans athletes an unfair advantage. But trans athletes are regularly beaten by cis athletes, and even in sports like rugby, they don't cause more injuries than cis women of the same size. People say all sorts of things about testosterone and bone strength that are completely made up because they're doing the same thing, starting with the politics and inventing facts about women's bodies to justify it.
I would ask any anthropologist, any archaeologist, anyone who...
I love this argument of when they dig you up in a million years, they're going to know that you were a man. Okay, cool. Do you know how long I'm going to be dead for by the time that happens? And also, I want to be cremated. I don't want to be buried alive. Well, not that... Jesus, too real. Moving on.
Who has studied and understands the human body, okay? You take two skeletons a man and a woman.
No, I've heard this argument in like a satirical way. I've never heard it being explained in earnest, so I'm really excited to see what happens here. Do you know how many times people don't know whether whether a skeleton was assigned male or female? Because like really, your penis decomposes. Jesus, what kind of sentence is that? Everything decomposes. There's just your bones left. It just, ugh.
Of course, two people who have passed away, they're buried. You dig them up 100 years from now. Look at their skeletons, a man and a...
So I'm gonna live my life now in the gender that I was assigned, so I don't confuse the archaeologists that dig up my remains in 100 years. Like, what's that? It doesn't make sense. Like, maybe I'll leave like I'll leave a little metal plaque on my chest that just says so they know, but that's, I'm getting funny now. Okay, we're almost there.
And ask them if you would be able to tell which one the man is versus which one the woman is. Not only is it bone density and bone structure, women have larger hips, our skulls are different, our jaws are different, our joints and our knees are different. There are so many differences that men and women possess. And that's not even just in humans. That's in virtually every...
Just like dogs, because dogs aren't confused about their gender. Seriously, that's my second shout out to episode 31 of Dismantling Hate, where we looked at Girl Defined. They were talking about the Pride line and Target. Go watch it. Oh my God, go watch that after this video. That is such a funny one. I had a perfect hair day, sunset, painting my nails. These nails, they're kind of falling apart now. Okay.
Species, males and females, differ in ways that don't make one sex inferior. That's something I hear a lot about this topic is, well, you're saying that women...
Isn't that the basis of your whole argument? Yeah.
...compete against men. You're just, you're saying that women are worse than men. No, I'm not saying one sex is inferior or superior to the other, but we're different. And we're different in a way that's really beautiful, that complements one another. And to speak to the injuries piece, yes, women playing against women in sports that require physical conduct or physical contact or where you're throwing something at one another or colliding into each other, yes, the risk for injury is always there, but the severity and the likelihood of these injuries happening increase tenfold when you put a man on.
But like when you say tenfold, like where's the data? Like where's the data? Show it. Like where are the receipts? Do you have receipts though? I'm speaking without receipts here too, but I'm not really speaking to like a lot of the science and statistics of it all. Like you just showed us the chart of the differences between the male and female skeleton, and now you're saying that people are 10 times more likely to be injured when there's a trans woman on the field. Like, show us. Like the woman that was speaking and the woman that they're reacting to just said that people make up facts, and that's literally what she's doing right now.
That court or that field. We've seen it. We've seen it in...
I've seen it, which means that it's true from a statistical standpoint. And again, like I'm speaking to but it's different. It's different. Ugh.
Volleyball. We've seen several men give women concussions, season-ending concussions, even career...
Because people haven't had concussions from other cis women on the field. Like nobody was injured until trans people came onto the runway. To the runway. Put that bass in your walk.
Concussions. What about Peyton McNabb? The high school senior in North Carolina. A boy is playing on the opposing team, which, let me just add, a men's net is 7.5 inches higher than a standard women's volleyball net, because it's almost as if they're acknowledging that biological advantages do in fact exist. But nonetheless, this boy jumps up, he spikes the ball, hits Peyton in the face. Immediately she's knocked unconscious, where she laid for minutes before finally coming back around. And this happened...
Like, that's tragic. That's sad. But it's not any more or less sad because it was a trans woman on the other side of the net. It would have been just as bad either way. That doesn't make a difference in my opinion.
September of 2022. Okay, so a year and what, 8-ish months since then. She's still partially paralyzed on her right side.
Like, that's tragic. That is so sad, and I hate that for her. It doesn't make a difference if that was a trans person. That could have just as easily happened with a cis woman.
Her vision is impaired. Her memory is impaired. She has to have special accommodations for testing at school now because she can't retain information like she once could. She has to have weekly doctor appointments, even still. What about the field hockey player in Massachusetts at Dighton Rehoboth, who, again, a boy playing on the field, he slaps a shot.
Is that what those little sticks look like? That looks so funny. That's not real, is it? Field hockey? I don't know anything about sports.
Girl in the face. She lost all her teeth. She had to undergo facial reconstruction surgery, jaw surgery, to reconstruct her face after being hit by a boy.
We're just talking about sports injuries here. We're not like do we realize how many people also get injured by like cis people in sports? I don't we're just focusing on one side.
Fallon Fox, the male fighter who brutally beat up many women, Tamika Brents being one of them. I believe
It's not beating people up if they're in there to like, it's not beating them up if they're actually, if that's the sport that they're doing. That's not beating somebody up. That's the sport. That's
fractured 7 orbital bones, 12 orbital bones, something like that. Gave 2 women concussions, fractured their skulls. Yeah, that's not happening when it's just women fighting women.
Yeah, it's awful.
There's no injuries when it's women against women. That's not true.
I just don't know how anybody could deny the just blatantly clear advantage that exists and has existed so much so that we've decided to divide these categories. And in this next TikTok, we're going to ask you more about solutions, because there's a lot of talk of, well, what do we do with people who are trans and want to be athletes? I'm curious to get your opinion on this. We're going to hear from some trans-identifying individuals on what they think should be happening.
There should be a separate third category for trans people to compete in.
You know, I wholeheartedly, strongly deny the third category introduction, because I'm not the third. I deserve to be a part of the female category. I'm female. Males deserve to be a part of the male category.
Also, logistically, it cannot work. There are not enough
athletes
people
in the world to
Yes,
create a third category.
Right. In Utah, let's take Utah for example. Utah is one of the states in America that banned trans athletes altogether. Do you know how many trans athletes were competing in the state of Utah when they passed that
7.
ban? 1.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
One. What is she gonna do? Just go play by herself?
Yeah.
Like Kentucky, same thing. 2.
Right.
2 kids.
No one's being banned. I hate when they say that. It's a common misconception that we see from the left. Not to polarize this issue, but to make it political or divisive. Naturally, it has become that.
Yeah, not to be divisive, but all trans people are, God, I hate this. How much longer? We got 5 minutes left.
They're banning trans athletes. No one is being banned. That's entirely fear-mongering. Just compete where is safe, number 1, and fair, number 2, and that's with your biological sex. So let's be very clear there. But I will say I agree with them in terms of not creating a third category, but I disagree for other reasons, or I agree for other reasons. The reasons I believe that a third category would suffice is because it would be a category where you still very much have males competing against females. And if safety and fairness matter for every single person, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation or race or religion or whatever other identity factor matters, which I believe they do for every single person, if you have males competing against females, it's still not going to be safe or fair. So then, okay, do you further split it between males who identify as women and women who self-identify as men? Okay.
Like,
then,
it's pulling teeth to get this woman to just, like, say trans woman or trans men or men. Like, she just is so hateful that it's so built into her language. It's painful.
further split it between men who have began HRT before puberty and men who took HRT, hormone replacement therapy, after puberty. And sports are the one place where, like I said, you don't look at identity factors. You don't look at anything else because they doesn't.
Did she just say in sports you don't look at identity factors? What are we watching?
Doesn't matter when you're playing sports. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, dogs aren't confused about their gender, but they're pissed at this transphobia.
That's all right.
Hey, buddy, hi, come here. Do you want to say hi? This is him.
Hello. Oh my gosh, so cute. Look at those ears.
That is a cute
Oh my
dog.
goodness.
The solution is what has been in front of us the past at least 50 years. Males compete against males, females compete against females. It's not overly complicated. It shouldn't be controversial. If you have a Y chromosome, you shouldn't compete with women. It's that simple.
And honestly, you'd think, a lot of the trans people say, well, this identity is so important to me. It's so important to take on this new life. Well, then, for the sake of your identity, maybe one of the sacrifices is there's just not a fair way to compete in sports with the current condition. And that's
Just sacrifice it. Just don't do it. Yeah, as if trans people aren't sacrificing enough already. We're just going to exclude them from sports.
the way that the world works. It's the way the cookie crumbles. But for some reason, reason that can't be accepted. And interestingly enough, it has to be women's spaces that are entered into while we are accused of being misogynist. Riley, we could talk about this for hours. Unfortunately, we've run out of time today.
Thank God.
But luckily, you continue to do this work day in and day out. You're posting on social media. You have a new book coming out. Where can people continue to follow you? What's your final message to everyone watching? Because you're continuing to fight this fight, and it's an ongoing one.
That's the truth. Certainly ongoing, certainly getting crazier by the day. That's not to say that I don't believe that the tide is turning, because I truly believe it is, because of people like you. You can check out the book. It is called Swimming Against the Current, Fighting for Common Sense in a World That's Lost Its Mind. You can get it anywhere where you get your books. I believe it's on Amazon. It's, of course, a more in-depth account of what we experienced at that national championships, the unfair competition, the locker room, the silencing that we faced, the trajectory of where we're going as a nation, really as a world, how we got to this point, the broader picture of why this matters, because make no mistake, it's a lot bigger than just women's sports or not being able to hold that trophy on the podium, and what we can do as everyday common sense Americans who intuitively know that men and women are different.
Love
Yeah, because that's intuition. All right, we're going to leave it there, besties. Well, babies, that has been yet another impossible watch here on my channel. So yes, please do not go leave these people hate. I don't think we need to contribute to the culture of that. But I do want you to uplift those creators out there in the world that you agree with. So subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment. Do you agree with them? Do you agree with me? Do you sit somewhere in the middle? Go out there and find people that are fighting for what you believe in and support them. Subscribe to them, follow them, like them. Comment them, send them beautiful DMs. It can be just a bunch of hearts. It doesn't even need to be meaningful sentences. When people feel that support online, it truly can go such a far way. So I appreciate all the support I've got from all of you. It has truly been honestly overwhelming in the best way. So I appreciate all the comments you're leaving for me online. I'm just so thankful and happy and grateful that I am able to sit here in my apartment in the air conditioning and just talk about the things that I feel passionately about. So thank you so much for watching. Yeah, like I said before, if you haven't seen the Pride Isn't Biblical video, it's Dismantling Hate episode 31, the one just before this. Go and watch it. It's hilarious. It's so good if you need a good laugh. I have so many other videos on my channel, so yeah, you can go and binge that playlist if you like. And yeah, thanks for spending this time with me. Go out there in the world and leverage your voice when you feel safe to do so in the moments where people are being discriminatory. I love you, babes, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.